We're going up and down, over and over. It's the same old thing. Up and down, over and under.
Coach Calhoun, man, I appreciate it. Thank you for coming on the show.
Not a problem, man. I appreciate you remembering me and not forgetting about me after
come
all
on.
these years.
Dude, impossible. Impossible. There's a lot of coaches I've forgotten. Coaches that I would play for an entire season. Okay? You are not one of them.
I was thinking back like how we met. And it was at a QBR. It was a QBR camp.
That's right.
QBR.
That's right.
Man.
QBR camp. And I'll tell you this. And dude, I don't know if it's just me getting older or what, but I remember less and less all the time. But I still remember how I actually met you.
Okay.
We were going through the drills.
Yep.
And we would bounce around to different stations, and each station has its own coach. And for some reason, like, I just really connected with like the way you were teaching us. It was, I was having a blast, but I was actually like really learning. And I pulled you aside. I was like, hey man, can I just like work with you for an extra 5 minutes?
Yeah.
And it was like that first day you were like, absolutely. And so, 5 minutes turned into 10, turned into like all the way to lunch. And then over the course of that week, everyone kind of caught on and they were like, hey man, what the hell? And so shortly that group like started to grow over the course of the week, where everyone caught on that I was getting an extra training.
Yeah.
From the best coach at the camp. And they're like, bullshit.
That's awesome. That is awesome,
but dude,
man.
I was thinking about that too. I must have been 16, 17.
You were 16. You were going into your senior year in high school.
Yeah.
You're going into your senior year. Yeah.
Crazy, man.
Definitely.
Crazy. But yeah, well, and I would have expected it, but I'm so excited to see, one, not that you're just still at it, but like the incredible success that you're having. I feel like it's a who's who of first round draft picks, Pro Bowlers,
right?
And not just quarterbacks, just across the whole spectrum. Like we were catching up beforehand, like you're working with dudes all over the country, all sorts of professional teams. It's awesome to see.
Yeah, it's definitely. It's been a long road, man. It's been 15 years since I started Armed and Dangerous Football. So it was in the infant stages when I met you. It was only I've only had it for 2 years. And the way I would use a QBR was, I'm like, okay, how can I get more clients? So I would go and be a coach at the quarterback receiver camp, which they had 400 quarterbacks out there. And I'm like, I would go out there and I was able to coach you and several other guys and then start working with you guys privately. And that's how I actually grew my business.
Yeah.
Through QBR. And 15 years later, here I am.
That's amazing. Is QBR, are they still operating?
No, they're not. They stopped it after 44 years because kind of like guys like me, made them go out of business.
Came in,
Sorry about that. Sorry, Laird Hayes. That's my guy. He gave me my start. Sorry, Laird. Coach DeFreeze.
Oh, dude, Coach DeFreeze. Oh my God, I remember that name.
Yeah.
So actually, that's maybe a really good point, because like now I feel like, and I don't know, do you like the moniker quarterback guru? Because that's like what I think of you as, but no, you're shaking your head.
No, I do not. I do not.
Okay.
Because it's not special anymore. That word is, people throw it out so much.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean like, dude, like you're really,
a specialist, an expert.
A specialist. Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't like it, but people say it, and so
been called worse.
Right.
I've been called much worse. Probably this week actually. But so one of the things I was going to ask you is, like, when you started this, I feel like it wasn't as I don't know, like to your point, like there weren't quarterback gurus all over the country at that time, right? And I know you don't like that term, but like it almost feels like you really kind of had to like chart your own path at that time.
Definitely. I did not know it was going to grow to what it is right now, as far as me running camps and stuff overseas, in Germany and all over Europe and all over the country here. But I was just trying to just start something here locally, because when I was growing up, I never had a quarterback coach. I have 4 older brothers, so I would tell my dad, hey, man, I would love to get a quarterback coach to help me with my throwing mechanics. He was like, hey, go in the backyard, throw the ball with your brothers. Those were my quarterback coaches. So once I was able to, get the knowledge, from a gentleman named Tom Shine, who was my offensive coordinator and quarterback coach in junior college. He taught me about throwing mechanics and footwork and all the stuff that I still preach now that I taught you, however many years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, okay, now I understand why the ball goes high or low, right or left, And so I just took that and just started to build on those fundamentals. And go ahead.
No, and I was going to say, like, for me, I grew up north of Seattle, and I was actually in a fairly, large conference, and I had a great coach. I had some really good coaches, but it was such a difference that first time working with you, seeing like, wow, there's a whole nother level of like mechanics I need to pay attention to. And to your point, you can start to like understand like, hey, I keep throwing the ball high.
Mm-hmm.
Why might that be? And then there's an actual like practical solution.
Yes.
And I was just like hooked.
Right.
I was like, oh my, like there's someone has answers.
Yes.
Yeah. And when you're not getting that, it's like you're just kind of left to your own devices and like your potential's almost capped.
Exactly. When I was playing quarterback in high school and college, and if I would miss high or miss low, the coaching point would be, hey, Calhoun, get the ball down. Hey, Calhoun, get the ball up. Okay, coach, I really am trying to get the ball down, like how do I do it? So, but once I went through, played for Tom Shine, and he taught me about all the throwing mechanics and the footwork and the balance, the accuracy and all those things. I'm like, and just like you, I mean, it was like a light bulb that came. I'm like, wow, okay, I understand exactly how to make the ball do what I wanted to do.
Right.
And so that was awesome, man. So once I got that and it was just all fundamentals. It was not, you see some of the stuff now, some of the training techniques, you have guys, working out in waist deep water and on the sand and stuff like that. I'm not going to be a gimmick guy. And to those guys who do that stuff, if they get the results they get, awesome. I'm not knocking you. But if we play on a grass field, turf field, we're practicing on a grass field or a turf field.
Yeah.
And so that's how my thought process is, as far as I'm not going to do anything gimmicky. I'm going to, use the things that we actually do in a game. And as far as just the movements, the stuff we're going to do in the game, the movements we're going to do in the game, those are the ones we're going to actually practice. We're not going to practice stuff that we're not going to do in the game. So.
Yeah. And it's funny, and it's sad that I'm realizing this in my 30s. It's a little late, but like a really good example that I've kind of experienced. I was trying to get faster again. Right. So like part of me like getting back into, working out and everything is I was going to do this decathlon, and part of this decathlon has like a 400 meter and 800 meter, and it has a 40-yard dash. So I was like, shit, I gotta get fast again. Okay. I've been sitting on my ass for 8 years selling software and media. I haven't run in a long time, so let me figure that out. And so like I went in and I was doing squats and lunges and all this stuff that like I thought was going to make me faster. It made me really good at like squats and lunges, but it didn't make me faster. And then I was talking to the sprint coach. He was like, yeah, if you want to get better at running, you should probably run. And I was like, oh yeah, that's a pretty good point, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's like, it was such a perfect example for what you're saying. It's like, yeah, maybe there's some benefit to some of this gimmicky stuff in some way, but it's like, if you want to get better at something, you have to like do that thing.
You absolutely have to do it. There's no question about it. And I've built my company off those fundamentals. Just because I'm always telling the athletes, I said, I'm going to build you a great fundamental base. So on top of your skill set, that's where you will separate with the quarterback that you're competing with on your team or the kids around the country. And that's just a little bit of separation that you need to become a starter and a great quarterback.
How it feels like now with the internet, YouTube, and like you mentioned, Huddle, right? Like kids have more access now to fundamentals than they probably ever did before. But like, are you finding that that's translating? Like when kids come to you, are they still like lacking in the basic fundamentals that it takes to be successful, or is it starting to get better?
Well, it's kind of hit or miss. It's from kid to kid because there's so many quarterback coaches out there now. So there's so many voices that they're hearing that sometimes that they're getting bad information. So when I do get them, I got to undo their bad habits and then rebuild their fundamentals. So it's, there's so many different quarterback coaches out there. And I mean, here in California, it's unbelievable. There's a quarterback coach on every corner.
Really?
Oh my gosh. Because of the money involved, and parents are paying,
Yep.
a lot of money to get their kids trained up,
And
so,
California is just on another level.
yeah. So, I mean, the fact that anybody now can create an Instagram or a Twitter account and put some drills on there, and parents who don't do their due diligence, they'll see some, oh man, I saw a guy training at the beach. Wow. Okay. Man, that's something different, man. My kid can use that, and
Yeah.
they take them there and stuff like that. So, yeah.
It's scary. It's like now there's no barrier to entry anymore to be an expert, right?
Correct.
It's like
Correct.
if you have an Instagram handle, it's flashy, you edit it
Mhm.
well. I even find it, and I try to be really careful with what I put up on my own Instagram, and I try and be really clear that like, hey, this is me, this is what I'm doing. I'm just kind of
Correct.
sharing the approach I'm taking. I'm not a strength and conditioning coach.
Right.
People will reach out to me all the time, like, will you train me? Like, can you tell me how to? And I'm like, whoa, hey, I appreciate it, but like, just so you know, like,
Right.
you're only seeing one glimpse into just what I'm doing. It's
Mhm.
not necessarily like, I don't know. I don't have.
No, I get it.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Like, there's a very low bar to entry to be someone that people will assume can like help them get the results they want.
Absolutely. I find that all the time. Yeah, it's really interesting. Really
Yeah.
interesting. But
The thing that we got to do though is we got to get. I was talking to you beforehand. We got to get you. It's time to get you out there. Is how I feel.
Okay.
If enough people don't know your name by now, we got to change that, because I can attest you are the best in the business, hands down.
Oh, I appreciate it. It's funny you said that. I just have a new client from the Santa Barbara area.
Okay.
And he says, dude, I've never heard of Armed and Dangerous Football until last week. And he goes, I was at my daughter's volleyball tournament, and I was talking to another dad, and I was telling him that my son's a quarterback, and he goes, oh, well, man, you should call Steve Calhoun, Armed and Dangerous Football. He's all, never heard of it. He goes, dude, he's in Orange County.
Right.
He goes, I've never heard of it. I'm like, wow. So he was like, hey, no offense, Steve, I've never heard of you. Like, he goes, but
We
I
gotta
looked you
change
up,
that.
and he was like, dude, you got Jordan Love and Cody Kessler and
Right.
man, and all these guys, and Nick Foles, Super Bowl winner. And he's like, holy smoke, like, dude, I've never heard your name.
Yeah,
So.
because you're too busy actually getting shit done. That's probably what's happening.
So to that, he tells me that, you call me out of the blue, you have the ability to help get my name out there. So I just think that it was just timing. It's God's timing, man.
Yeah, and you know what I'll say too, and I think this is something that I feel like is a trait of people who are like truly passionate, but truly have like something to offer. Like back when you trained me, like you trained me for free, right? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you let me come crash on your couch.
Right.
I had the money for the plane ticket, but not much else.
Right.
And it's like we were willing to kind of like share that knowledge and expertise, for nothing, right? Like you gave far more than like you got in return. And I just feel like that's a testament of, your approach is like a teacher.
Absolutely.
Right. Versus
Absolutely.
someone who's just trying to like turn every buck. And I think that I have to imagine like that has to be a part of like the success that you had, like the names that you just mentioned. It was a couple first round draft picks and Super Bowl champions among that list.
Correct.
Right. So
absolutely.
Very cool to see how it's evolved.
Definitely. And I mean, I am not in the training business for the money. I do make a living off of it. And it's cool to be able to wake up and coach kids every day and make a living, but I'm not just trying to just go out and just get the most money and give the least amount of information and get more money for it.
Right.
Like you said in your example, I saw your passion to learn. That's what made me go, man, you as a quarterback pushed me to a level that I'm like, okay, I really got to get in my lab, because you would ask great questions like, man, well, Steve, why's my ball doing this? Why is this doing this? All right, why'd you tell me to do this? And I'm like, okay, I really got to get back in the lab and be able to answer Kenny questions. So you pushed me as a coach to become, and so when you have that passion, I'm like, man, that you made me a better coach. I don't even, like, as far as the money part of it, it was like, dude, man, let me just continue to drop all my knowledge that I have over the 33 years I played football into this young man who's passionate about it, So
well, I appreciate it. And actually, man, that's a path we should go down. So you have a pretty awesome story about your playing days.
yeah.
So can we take people a little bit through your path,
Sure.
all the way through your eventual like kind of retirement? Because I think I think a lot of people aren't even aware that these opportunities exist.
Yeah. Well, played high school, football here in Orange County at Santa Ana Valley High School.
Quite the basketball player.
Yeah,
also, if I remember correctly.
Definitely. Could definitely play some hoop.
Told constantly.
Right. So I'm 6'3", and I was a 3 guard. And so I'm like, man, okay, if I go to college and play basketball, most 3 guards are like 6'7", 6'8". So I'm like, man, then I'm going to have to be a point guard. And I don't want to spend the time of trying to handle the balls. But I said, man, I'm a pretty tall quarterback. So that's the path that I chose. Ended up going to Santa Ana Junior College and then transferred to New Mexico State. So 2 years at Santa Ana College, 2 years at New Mexico State. Thought I was going to the NFL, and they were like, no, you're not good enough. And so, I ended up getting a phone call from a team in Germany. Yeah. And I was like, Germany? You guys play football in Germany?
Right.
And I was like, yeah. And, we're paying $5,000 a month, and we'll give you an apartment and a car. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Because my scholarship check in New Mexico State was $375 a month. So I said, $5,000 a month? Let's go. Right. So, I ended up going to Germany and playing football for 9 years. The funny thing about that is I grew up in Germany. My father was in the service.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah. So I was born here in Orange County. 4 months after I was born, we moved to Germany. So I grew up, went to all German kindergarten. So ich spreche sehr gut Deutsch. Kannst du Deutsch sprechen now? Like, no, I don't speak any German.
Sorry.
So
the German listeners of this podcast, their ears just perked up. They're like, it's been 33 episodes. I've been waiting.
Yeah. So, so going back over to Germany, playing there for 9 years. And once I got done playing, in 2003 is when I came back and wanted to stay involved in football. And, the gentleman we talked about before, Coach John DeFries, gave me my first coaching job at Low Era High School. And he goes, hey, by the way, during the summer, I'm the head coach of this quarterback receiver camp in Thousand Oaks.
Yeah.
Would you like to come and be a coach? We're going to pay you $300, for 3 days. I'm like, absolutely. And so I'm thinking in the back of my mind, okay, I'm launching Armed and Dangerous Football. I have no clientele. I got all this great knowledge I'm ready to give somebody, and I didn't have anybody to give it to. And then he presented that opportunity to coach in Thousand Oaks, and I meet a young man named one of the guys, Ken Gunter, and another, Washington great quarterback, Jake Locker.
Yeah.
Who I met before you. I met Jake Locker there.
That's right.
Ferndale's finest.
I know, Ferndale. Yeah, and actually, Jake, it's funny. Maybe I'll reach out to Jake at some point. But Jake and I actually roomed together at QBR, and then we never played against each other in football, but we played against each other in basketball. And which is just, you know what I mean, just a small world. Yeah. But I made sure to ball out in that game.
Yeah.
Because I knew too much.
Yeah. So, that's kind of the path that I took, as far as, playing over in Germany for 9 years. And now once I got done playing, the game is still growing over there very fast. So I would fly back over there every summer in August and run camps over there. So I've been doing that since 2003, running camps back in Europe. So I run camps in Germany and also in the Netherlands. And
no way.
Yeah.
And it's most people don't realize, like, there's it's not a huge percentage, but there's like European born players in the NFL.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. How is the game kind of evolving over there?
Well, what really took the game took off over there in Europe is when the NFL Europe start playing games and having teams over there and having the NFL backing and, start putting money into the development of European players. And that's when
Hamburg. Am I making that up?
No. It was the Hamburg Sea Devils. It was the Rhine Fire.
Yeah.
It was the Amsterdam Admirals. Kurt Warner played for the Amsterdam Admirals.
That's right.
Vinatieri, the kicker, he played for Amsterdam. Those are all Super Bowl winners that played in that league, but they were like second and third stringers that didn't get a chance to play here in the NFL. So that was a great developmental league to allow those guys to grow and get reps and then come back and join their teams. And that's when the game in Europe really took off. And then once they left and shut it all down, there was just this big void of like, man, there's nobody developing players anymore. And that's why I just kept going back over there, just trying to do my part. They provided me with the opportunity to play over there for 9 years and get to learn the culture. And, I spoke German, and I was just able to continue to develop it.
Yeah. So, what was it? What was the town you were in?
I was in Dusseldorf.
I remember the mayor of Dusseldorf, I think. Is that what he called you or something like that?
That was my nickname, the mayor, the Bergemeister. The Bergemeister.
Oh, my God.
Dusseldorf. Absolutely.
That's
so this was the first time in 15 years that I wasn't able to go over there and run camps because of all the COVID-19 stuff. Yeah. Because I usually, once August 1st hits, all my NFL guys are in training camp. All my college guys are, high school. Youth football starts right around August 1st, August 5th. And then I take the whole month of August and go and run camps over there and take a little bit of a vacation.
That's awesome.
Was the first year that I wasn't able to do it.
How is like the talent level over there progressing? Like, is it go ahead. I'll just let you answer.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I mean, the talent level. I mean, there's a quarterback from Germany at TCU, at Virginia, at Penn State.
Really?
Oh my God, yes. And then you talk about linebackers and O linemen and D linemen. They're all over college football. Absolutely.
Wow. Yeah, I remember that. I mean, I'm trying to think. I guess it was at a JUCO, but yeah, there was a big German safety. Okay. You know what I mean? He just looked like a big German dude. But I was like, man, these guys are built to play this game.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Yeah. So like Sebastian Valmer, who played for the New England Patriots, he was their starting left tackle, for years. He's from Dusseldorf. I've known him since he was 14 years old.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, he played. He was on our youth program, our Dusseldorf youth program.
Oh, that's incredible. See, I think, just a lot of folks don't even realize, you know what I mean? Because it's not uncommon to have like a European last name, but I think most people just don't make the connection that some of these guys are actually like born and raised over there.
Absolutely. And now the NFL actually have foreign, you would say,
like some sort
development, like a development program for players. I mean, example, like on my son's team, my son plays for the Dolphins. They have a guy from Rio de Janeiro, from Brazil, who's a defensive tackle. He's a former, he's a former, jiu-jitsu guy, but he just happens to be 300 pounds. You know what I mean? So he's great with his hands. So that translates to playing defensive line.
Yeah.
So they have a great developmental program of all these countries, from Russia and Germany and Brazil and South America, and so the NFL is doing a great job of continuing to develop those players and having that program.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I guess it's kind of like a testament to, if you're good enough, they'll find you. You know what I mean?
Exactly right. That's
exactly everywhere.
Right. Yes.
One thing that you said that I think is really important, and I'd be interested to hear like how this has changed over time, or if it like hasn't needed to, is like your understanding of the fundamentals, right? Like you had that really instrumental coach who kind of like helped establish that for you.
Definitely.
The things that you're doing now, how have a lot of like those concepts kind of like come into being? Are they things that you've kind of created over time? Is a lot of it rooted in that initial education that you had? And I'm totally missing the coach's name.
Tom Shine.
Thank you.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like how has that kind of developed over time, and kind of like, what's your process in finding like, hey, these are the drills, or these are the sorts of things that we need to do to help take my guys to the next level?
Well, that's a kind of a two-part answer to that.
Okay.
If you came out and watched me work out, I can't even remember the last time, man, we trained together.
Yeah.
10 years, 12 years, something like that.
Yeah. Something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you said you're 17, you're 33 now, or 16.
Yeah. So 15, 16 years. Yeah.
Right. So if you came out and watched it, you will recognize all the stuff that I taught you. You would be like, man, I remember doing all the same things.
Yeah.
Okay? That's the first part of it. And then the second part is me watching film or watching the game And I wanted to create a drill for every possible movement a quarterback can make in the game. That's the second part. So I have my fundamental base that I taught you when you were 16 years old that I still do. And now I add the extra drills of just stuff that they're going to actually do in the game.
Right.
They're in a 4-3 over and we get pressure from a 3 technique coming across our face. Okay, let me add that where I'm clearing the ball across my body, taking it out of danger of that 3 technique that your right guard's pushing across your face. That's the 2 parts that I incorporated into Armed and Dangerous Football. But if you came out and watched the workout, you'd be like, oh, clap drill. Oh man, you'd be like, dude, I remember doing everything. And it's 15 years later, you know what I mean?
So, well, and that's what's interesting to me is it's like the fundamentals at their core, the fundamentals, right?
That's it.
And I guess that's what I'm interested to understand too, because I've had the benefit, the listeners haven't, but I've had the benefit to like work with you and like, have a glimpse of like what makes you such a great coach.
Okay.
But it's, there must be something else there that's like separating you from the other folks who are, the countless quarterback coaches now that exist. Yeah. That has kind of like kept you at this level. Like, would you say, is it that second part, that ability to take what you see as actual like in-game situations and break it down?
No, I think it's a real simple thing. It's the way I can communicate the information from my brain to the athlete and get them to understand it.
Yeah.
That's it right there. So it's always being able just to communicate the information, because there's a lot of coaches that know way more football than me, but can they communicate all that information that they have to the athlete? Yeah. And everybody learns differently. You learn differently than Nick Foles or Kellen Moore or, Jordan Love. So as a quarterback coach, I can't coach you and Jake Locker the same way. Possibly, I can, but sometimes I have to communicate it differently because you're more of a visual guy. So I got to be able to visually show exactly how it looks.
Right.
And with Jake, I could say, hey, Jake, when you're stepping and throwing, I want you to bring your bicep to your ear so you can have more of a over-the-top motion.
Right.
And so those are the things. But that's the one thing that separates me from other people doing, this job.
That makes sense. Yeah. Have you, you're a people person, but like, were you aware that was like such a advantageous skill for you? Or has it just kind of like, you've begun to understand that over time?
Well, no, parents have, approached me after workouts and say, hey, you do an unbelievable job of telling, the information or letting my son know the information that he wants. And then also in camps, working at the QBR camp or working at the Manning Passing Academy, which I've done now for 8 years, and have Peyton and Eli. Have Peyton, Eli, or Mr. Manning come up to me and say, hey, the way you communicate the information to these kids is unbelievable. I've never heard it broke down like that. I've never heard it told to a kid like that. Yeah. Just the amount of deep detail that I'm giving them. And so that's when I'm like, okay, that's the difference. There's not I don't believe there's bad coaches. There's only bad communicators.
Yeah, I agree with that. Oh, no, there's some bad coaches. I've had some. What's funny is I read, and again, a Seattle guy originally, but I read Pete Carroll's book, and he identified that is one of his strengths. And I remember there's this really good example he had. He had some player at USC. They're all studs at that time. And he knew it was a kid that like just did not respond to yelling. Like yell at him, he's not going to get the message. There's no point. Like, but you can talk to him, and he's actually a really bright guy, and he'll be able to take that information and he'll do exactly what you want him to do.
Okay.
And so he was like, I started to pick up that like I had this ability to assess like what a person actually needed and whatever. And he tells a story about this one time where the kid runs off the field, did something wrong, and Pete just starts screaming at him like he would some of the other guys.
Right.
And the kid just kind of like dumbfounded stopped him. He was like, why are you yelling at me? And he was like, oh shit. He's like, that's right. He doesn't respond to this very well. He's like, oh, my bad. He's like, you know what? Next time, just do X, Y, and Z. Exactly. And, but no, it's like, it's so critical. And I do feel like, the ability to communicate is what really does like separate like the great coach from the average coach. Because it's like if you can't get the information into their head in a way that they understand, like
that's it. Wow.
What are you doing?
What are you doing? Yes. It's
I'm
just,
with
it's going in one ear and right out the other. Definitely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How and change course a little bit. So I don't think we were recording yet, but when I met your son, who's now like a stud defensive player in the NFL, he was 12.
Yes.
How awesome has it been to see like his development and progression?
It's been great, because when you met him, he still thought he was a basketball player.
Yeah. Okay.
He was like, "Oh, I want to be hot sauce from And One," when the whole And One series.
Not enough people remember And One and hot sauce.
Exactly. So he wanted to be, hot sauce, and Dad, I want to play basketball. And I'm like, I said, I have a lot of knowledge about this game of football I can give you. So I said, no, let's just continue to play both. But to his credit, he allowed me to coach him. But it got to a point his senior year in high school where he heard my voice so much, it was just like, okay, all right, Dad's telling me to, okay, because I'm coaching him as a receiver,
Right.
And so he's just like, okay, Dad's telling me to run a 12-yard speed out. Dad's telling me to run a go route. Okay, also, Dad's telling me to take the trash out. Dad's telling me to clean my room. Dad's telling me to vacuum. So I said, okay, I have to, find somebody who can tell him the same information.
Isn't that crazy?
Okay? Yeah. You're about to go through it. You got kids now, Kenny.
Well, I'm sending them to you. As soon as that's what I was going to ask is like, how old do they have to be to ship them out for a period of time?
Yeah. So that was my biggest thing is, okay, so like my really good friend, Mike Scott, who played football with me in Germany, he runs a company like mine.
Yeah.
Which is called Backpedal 101. He does DBs and I do receivers and quarterbacks.
Very cool.
So he's been training my son since he was in the 7th grade.
Awesome.
So we would fly out to Dallas where, Mike Scott's located. And I used to be like, okay, Mike, here you go. Take him, and I'm listening to Mike coaching him and I'm like, dude, I just said the same thing. I swear I just said that, but he would just take to it. And so, I mean, that's kind of the path, that we went on. And as far as, okay, let me find one voice. Okay, I know a bunch of DB coaches, but there's one who can communicate the information, does a great job of communicating all this information about playing defensive back and cornerback and all these situations. I'm like, okay, you're in Texas, it's okay. I'm going to save my money and we're going to fly out here every month. Okay. Is there good defensive back coaches here in California? Yes, but I don't want him mix information. One voice.
Yeah.
That's what accelerated his path. And so he ends up, getting one scholarship offer, one, with all the college coaches that I know across the country. So people are like, oh, Nick, dude, you're so lucky. Your dad knows every college coach.
Right.
And I reached out to every one of them and they're like, but man, he's only a 2-star. And I'm like, he can really play the game. His football IQ is really, really high. And they're like, but there's this 5-star man, at Modern Day High School, at St. John Bosco High School right there that we're going to take. And I'm like, okay. So he ended up going to UTEP. And you can only go to one school anyway, even if you have 50 offers.
Yeah.
And, University of Texas at El Paso, they say, hey, we play man-to-man defense, press man, and that's your skill set. If you come here, we want to redshirt you, let you get bigger, stronger, faster, and then you'll start for 4 years. And then that's what happened. So he started for UTEP for 4 years, and he's the all-time leader in pass breakups in the history of the school. And so we're like, all right, man. So he has a 4th round grade. We're like, okay. He gets invited to doesn't get invited to the combine, but he gets invited to the draft. So, man, NFL, we flew out to Nashville. We're like, man, we had dinner with Roger Goodell. We're like, dude, you're about to get drafted. Let's go. 4th round comes, nothing. The teams are calling, going, oh, okay. Hey, if you're there in the 5th round, we're going to get you.
Right.
5th round comes. But if you're there in the 6th round, hey, for sure we're going to pick you. 6th round comes, nothing. 7th round, nothing. He goes undrafted.
How stressful is that time?
I can't even. Yeah, for him, he was going crazy because when you have these teams that are calling you. First of all, we're in Nashville. We're in Nashville, and we're seeing guys walk up on the stage and all that stuff. And you're just like going, man, we're about to get picked. Wow. And then nothing. And then, the draft ends and then 7 teams call and say, hey, we want to offer you a contract. And the best situation that his agent decided was the Miami Dolphins, because they were, completely rebuilding with a brand new head coach. And so he went to that situation and, ended up making a team and was on the practice squad for the first, 4 weeks. They brought him up, week 5, and they said, okay, we're not just going to put you on special teams. You're starting. You have to guard the Redskins. Oh, excuse me. The Washington football team.
Thank you.
The Washington football team's best receiver, Paul Richardson. He
goes wow.
Yeah. They were like, he goes and gets a hot dog. You put relish on the hot dog. You follow him everywhere.
And Richardson can fly.
He can fly. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
So, and that was his, he went out there and held Paul Richardson to 1 catch for 5 yards. And they were like, okay, we got to steal.
Yeah.
And he ended up starting, 12 games for the Dolphins. So it's been unbelievable journey. Unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, you've got to be so proud.
Yeah, definitely. So we're thinking, all right, man, dude, he's going to start his second year. And then the Dolphins go out and they sign Byron Jones to 5 years, $82 million. And he goes, okay. I got to sit behind that guy. Because the year before they signed Xavier Howard to a 5-year, $70 million contract. So they have the second and the third highest paid corners on his team, even though he's coming off 12 games where he started and, did unbelievable as a rookie, thinking, okay, he has a chance to, solidify. And then on top of signing Byron Jones, they draft a corner in the first round from out of Auburn. And he's like, hey, what about me? What about me?
Got to climb the totem pole again.
And that's one of the phrases I use with him and all my athletes. I said, we're going to turn big rocks into little rocks with a really small hammer. So you just got to continue to chip away, Yeah.
Can you explain what you mean by that? Because I like that.
Yeah. It's just, no situation is ever going to turn out the way you want to. You just have to continue to work. You just have to, that's all, that's all you can control is your effort and your attitude. You can't control anything else. You can't control the general manager or the owner, signing a guy for $82 million or drafting a guy in the first round. You can't control that. All you can control is your work ethic. And so that's where I can't take credit for that saying. It's actually Keenan Allen's father who told me that.
Oh, really? All right.
Yeah, 5 years ago. Scott Lang is his name. Scott Lang. I'm giving you credit. He tells me, man, you never give me credit for that saying. You use it all the time.
I'll put it in the show notes. Everyone will know.
Big rocks, little rocks, small hammer.
That's awesome. You said something else that I think is really interesting. You said that you only wanted him to have like one voice.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah. Can you explain that a little bit? Because I feel like that's important. And before I give my opinion on why I think that matters, I would love to hear why you thought that was like really important, especially for him.
Yeah. Well, there's so many different ways to train a DB. And so if you have your son going to 2 or 3 different defensive back coaches, I don't think he will ever reach his full potential and his skill set because he's trying to do a little bit of defensive back coach 1, defensive back coach 2, defensive back coach 3.
Yeah.
So you get confused. So he's kind of paralysis by analysis. So he's thinking, okay, DB1 coach said this, DB2 coach said this, DB3 coach said this. And so he's thinking and not just reacting. And so when he just has one voice, now he has the same information with the same voice, with the same techniques. So now he can just play. He can take that information and just go out there, see how much muscle memory he's created and just play and not have to think.
And thinking like now, I mean, I haven't thought about playing quarterback for a long time, but like it is tough when you have multiple voices trying to tell you how to do something because it's like, it's conflicting. Like I remember like I would go out and train with you and my shit would be, I don't know why I'm cursing so much. I would be dialed in, you know what I mean? I felt like I found my rhythm and man, I could, and then I would get back on campus and then that quarterback coach would be like, whoa, what's this new stuff? Like, get that out of here. Like, let's dial you back into like my mold. And then all of a sudden you become this weird, like conflicted.
Exactly.
It's tough. And so I think there's a lot to be said for, hopefully you work with the best coach, ideally, right? But it
Correct.
almost sounds like it's regardless. There's a lot of different ways to skin the cat. It's better to stick with like kind of like one
Yeah.
consistent approach and just get excellent at that.
That's exactly right. So I'm always really careful of, especially whether it's high school kids or college kids, when they come to me, I say, hey, well, how do you guys take your 3-step drop? How are you guys' feet set when you guys are in shotgun? Okay. Because I don't want to teach it the way I want you to do it. I'm going to teach it the way they want you to do it. And I'm going to polish their technique. Okay. They want the left foot up in shotgun. That's really important because you don't lose the respect of that quarterback coach or the offensive coordinator from the high school team or the college team. Okay?
Right.
And they call me up and they say, hey, Steve, hey, man, I was skeptical about my quarterback coming to see you, but man, because they've had guys where they would come back after the summer throwing completely different, using different footwork, all those things. And they're like, no, we don't do that here at Virginia Tech. This is the way we do it. So it's always important for me to ask them first, the player first, how do you guys do it at your school? Because you don't play for me, you play for them. And I don't want you to go back to school and get in trouble. And then they call me, I'm going, hey, why are you teaching this technique? We don't do that here at this school. So it's really, really important that, I teach them the way they do it at their school.
Yeah. Is it tough? Because you're almost like a consultant. I mean, you're like a consultant in that way, where I don't think anymore you probably get the opportunity to like have a guy for an entire season, like completely under your watch, right? It's like, at some level, it sounds like you always got to send them back to their school, their program, their coach. Is that tough to navigate?
Not anymore, because we have FaceTime, we have Zoom calls where we can actually put film on of them practicing, and I can talk them through it. And I'm just an extra pair of eyes for the coaches that they're playing for. For example, I'm training Felipe Franks right now. He's a quarterback at University of Arkansas. He was at University of Florida.
Yeah, Florida Gator.
Florida Gator. And so he transferred to the University of Arkansas. So I've been out there twice in the last month. To work, because that's one of the quarterbacks I'm going to be training for this year's coming up draft. And so I said, I want to give you a head start of what we're going to be doing in the pre-draft. Plus, it's going to help you play better in the SEC season. Mm-hmm. And so he was like, okay, well, we would get on Zoom calls. So, like I said, I've only been out there twice, but the other times that I'm here in California, we get on a Zoom call. He can pull up his film from practice, and he goes, hey, well, what's wrong with my footwork here? Why did I miss this throw high, low, right, or left? And I can explain, okay, remember the drill we did when I was out there in Fayetteville? Okay, this is the drill that will help you become more consistent with that throw.
Right.
And so it's not hard anymore with all the stuff we have as far as with,
yeah, I mean, you can stay connected so much easier.
Yeah.
Are the coaches, you don't have to speak specifically about Arkansas because you've worked with guys at all sorts of schools. Are coaches usually pretty receptive to like your role in the process, or does it really depend?
I would say 90% of them are really receptive, really open to, because I mean, I am a voice with the kid and with the parents to help them decide on going to that school.
Yeah.
So, for example, I have a senior to be quarterback named Peter Costelli, who's committed to University of Utah. Okay. And so they say, hey, well, who are you working with in the off season or when you're in California? Oh, Steve Calhoun, Armed and Dangerous Football. I've been working with him since I was a sixth grader. And they go, oh, okay. And so the parents and Peter, they asked me when the recruiting comes down to those 5 schools, what school should I pick and the reason why? And I have a small piece in that puzzle of why he chose that school. And so when the university, Coach Willingham, he understands, oh, okay, well, Steve, you're working with Steve and you're going to continue to work with Steve when you're in the off season, when you're not here. So I have to learn to say, okay, that's fine. Okay, Steve is going to be part of this process. And first thing, Coach Willingham, what do you guys teach? Offensively, how do you want your quarterbacks, footwork on this throw, on the slant, or whatever it is? And he goes, man, I appreciate you even asking. I said, because these are the things I'm going to be teaching Peter when he's here with me in the off season, to continue to enhance his footwork and his, in that offense. And so he appreciates that, so that's always been a great thing.
I feel like that's got to be tougher for you, maybe it isn't anymore. Now it kind of is second nature, but like you have to be like very adaptive, right? Like you
Yes.
can't be like a one trick pony. It's like, no, hey,
No.
armed and dangerous. Like this is the way we throw it and that's it.
Right.
It's like what I'm hearing is like, no, like I take the time to understand how they do it at their program.
Yes.
And then I'll polish,
That's it.
I'll make it work. Yeah.
Definitely. But there's a coach that chastised me. He said, I know more about the quarterback position than you. I don't want you working with my guys in the off season. And I appreciate it if you didn't. And I said, wow. Okay. Coach, no problem.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. And once we get off here, I would
tell me who that is.
Deeper. Yeah, I'll dig deeper into that story because it threw me off.
That sounds like an ego thing more than right? Because if you're confident in what you're teaching them, it's like go work with who you like to work with. Just come back and be ready to roll. Yeah,
and I'm teaching them stuff in their offense. Not like I'm teaching a New England's offense. I'm teaching your college offense. You know what I mean?
Right.
What you got. So, but he took offense to it, and yeah.
Oh well.
Yeah.
We'll bash him later. You also said something too, like how many guys have you had the opportunity to train from a young age and see them develop? Like this kid that you said going to Utah, like you started working with him in what, 6th grade?
6th grade. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Cody Kessler, he was drafted in the 3rd round by the Cleveland Browns out of USC. I had him since the 6th grade. Jordan Love, who was a 26th pick overall by the Packers. I had him since the 8th grade. So there's quite a few guys who have had the opportunity. Keith Price, who played at University of Washington.
Oh, dude, I didn't know you worked with Keith Price.
Absolutely, since the 8th grade.
Oh, dude, I love Keith Price.
Yeah, all throughout high school, all through his time at UW, and
no way. Shoot, I didn't know that. Yeah, Keith Price he's so underrated, by the way.
Yeah.
Like I'm a big Husky fan.
Right.
I feel like he's just kind of been like, dude, he killed it when he was there.
Yes.
I was really hopeful that he was going to get a chance in the NFL. But hey,
I remember just a quick story about that is I went up to Seattle to run Keith Price's pro day. And I was up there for a week, and that was the same year that it was a lockout. It was a lockout in NFL, and the Seattle Seahawks had just drafted Russell Wilson. So Keith goes, hey man, Russell reached out to me because they're not allowed to train at their facility. Could he come and jump in a couple of our workouts? And I'm like, absolutely. Okay. Yeah. And he came down, to the bubble, and for the very first time, and you know how detailed my workouts are. There's a lot of terminology, there's a lot of movements, and Russell absolutely crushed the workout, like crushed it, like he's been doing it for 5 years, And me and Keith are looking at each other like, okay, this guy's going to be good. He's about to be really good.
You could just tell that, he was on another level.
A whole nother level. The way he could process the information, be able to hear it, and be able to do it. Yeah. That's the thing. I said, he's going to have a lot of success in the NFL. So
behind, I don't know. Mahomes is pretty darn good.
Yes,
but I feel like Russell Wilson right now is, it's like Mahomes and him. At least the way this season started.
Yes, definitely. He's definitely a top 5 quarterback.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that he's never got one vote for MVP. Not one MVP.
Insane.
Won a Super Bowl, went back to back to another Super Bowl, lost on the last play of the game, and he's never, has gotten one vote for MVP.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So what's next for you in the future? Because now, what I'm actually wondering, really, I guess what I'm really asking is like, how on earth do you balance all this? Because you're going over, you're running camps in Europe when COVID's not an issue. You're running camps all over the country. You're training your private clients. Like, how do you find the time to balance all that?
It's really not hard. Okay, so a normal year for me would be, I'm gonna start with January. It would be do my NFL draft prep. Okay, so for example, I had Jordan Love this year. Okay? I had Jordan Love, had the quarterback Jalen Henderson from Boise State, and had the quarterback from UTEP, Kai Loxley. So I had those 3 guys. So I'm working with those guys for draft prep, and then I'm also working with my college guys who would come home for spring break. And then there's my the off-season high school camp and youth program that I'm running. And so that is like 7 days a week, 10 hours a day. Plus I'm flying to the Senior Bowl with Jordan. You know, I'm there for 3 days, flying back, going to Jordan, going to the NFL Combine in Indianapolis for 4 days, coming back. And so it was just on the plane, but it's such a grind. And
Right.
so in a normal year, come August 1st, everybody's in training camp. Everybody's starting football.
Yeah.
And that's when I would take my break to Europe and have a little bit of vacation time and run a few camps over there to just continue to, develop the game. Come back September 1st, fly to the Miami Dolphins game, and then fly, come back home, go watch Keenan Allen play,
Right.
for the Chargers. Fly to Chicago to go watch Cordero Patterson play, and it's just so during the season, it's a lot slower because all the kids, as far as high school, and they're all in school. So if I do see my high school kids or my youth kids, I see them on the weekend. So I run what I call a tune-up camp twice a month for high school kids, because I just don't believe you should work on all these things from January to August and then not be able to work on them during the season. Like you'll be sharp the first 2-3 games. And then if you don't have a coach who understands about throw mechanics and footwork, I think you start to get a little bit sloppy. And so that's why I came up with the concept of running those tune-up camps. It's not a hard off-season grind workout, just like it sounds. It's just a little tune-up. We'll come out, jump some rope, keep your feet nice and quick, and just go through some throwing mechanics and some footwork for an hour and a half. And then, ship them
Polish
off.
it up.
Yeah, polish them up and get them back. So, I mean, that's when I really get a chance to kind of recharge my batteries is during the season, because it's not 7
ironically,
days a week.
that makes I would not have suspected that actually, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. But now, I'm sorry to cut you off, but now,
No, you're good.
Since here in California, we're not allowed to play football, no high school youth football. I basically started a whole nother. There's no high school
youth right now. Oh, wow.
No. So basically, I started a whole nother off season. So I'm working 7 days a week again.
Yeah. Oh man, crazy.
Because these kids are clamoring for it.
I've got a question for you. Now, being a father, and you've worked with kids at all ages now. Like, at what point? Because I also know there's the ugly side of parenting, right? Okay. There's the mom and dad who just knows that their kid is going to be an NFL quarterback, and there can be that side of it. Like, from your perspective, like, when is the right age for a kid who is, I think probably the most important thing is that they are interested in it.
They are interested.
What is the right age where like kids can really start to benefit from, like, this level of like coaching and like skill acquisition? Is it earlier than I'm thinking? Is it later? Like, what do you think?
I'm thinking it's 8 or 9, but it really depends on the kid though. But it's definitely right around 8 or 9. Okay. Because I used to have, a group of 7-year-olds, and we're out there, doing some drills, and there was a plane flying, over, and they would all stop and be like, "Hey, Coach Calhoun, look at the plane." I'm like, no, bicep to ear. So I said, okay. And so their attention span just wasn't there. You can't keep them there for longer than 45 minutes. So I've gotten going. So now my earliest is like maybe 11. But it really just depends on the kid. If someone brings me an 8-year-old that can tell me, hey, well, Tom Brady, he was 21 of 34 for 243 yards on Sunday against Drew Brees, coach. I'm like, okay, we can work out. You know what I mean? Because he's just so locked in. And then there's other kids who want to talk about SpongeBob, and Mickey.
And there's a time and a place. There's a time and a place for SpongeBob. Right. Yeah, and that's something that I think about a lot, and I feel like people who listen to this show probably think that I'm a lunatic, but I actually go the other way with it. Like I've seen the side where a parent can burn a kid out and actually like steal the joy from it. Yes, and even any potential they might have had ends up unrealized because they just don't want to do it anymore.
Correct.
But and so like the more I've kind of thought about this, it's and looking back, like in my own life, like, I would imagine I would have been one of those kids where it's like there wouldn't have been a thing as like too much.
Right.
like I was clamoring to be out shooting, playing at any given opportunity, and I often had to be like pulled back in.
Correct.
You know, so I'm it makes sense to hear that it's about like the kid, the individual, their interest level. Like,
and I have no problem at all letting the parent know, okay, your son really wants to be a kicker, not a quarterback. Please let him go be a kicker. He is so disinterested in the things I'm telling him. It's not fun for me to try to just like beat a dead horse, basically using that old phrase.
Yeah.
Because he's just like looking at me like, God, when's this session over, Coach Calhoun? And I'm an energetic, I want to give you energy and you got to give it back. And that just makes it, you know, I'm super passionate about what I do. And when I'm giving you that energy, and I tell my athletes and my quarterbacks and receivers, I said, you have to reciprocate. Okay. I said, you have to bring energy, you know, but because most kids, they want to, all right, coach, put the music on. You got your Bluetooth speaker. Oh man, let's listen to Lil Yachty and Little Uzi Vert and the Lil Wayne and Lil Baby and all these little guys, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, and I'm like, you have to bring your own juice. If I'm giving you that energy, you got to give it back. And so you have a kid who's just like, oh no, I don't want to do it. I will definitely let the parents know, okay, you're absolutely wasting your money. Okay. So keep it. You can go and gamble it, you know, but I'm not going to take it. Cause I mean, it brings me down when I'm giving that much energy, you know, to a client and he's not giving it back and he's not trying to get better.
Yeah.
So it's frustrating for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, let me ask you this, and I feel like you might have just hit, but like, what is your favorite part of the job? Like, you've been doing it now, what, 15 years?
15 years. 15 years.
I mean, like, what gets you still like excited about it?
To see some of the stuff that we worked on in the off season translate into the game. Yeah. That's the first thing. And then the second part of that is when they give me a call and say, hey, Steve, God, you know, like if, you know, Felipe Franks, who's playing for the University of Arkansas, they're playing Georgia next week. Mm-hmm. And, you know, if they happen to, you know, beat Georgia and he calls me up after the game and says, hey, Steve, man, God, hey, thank you for helping me get to this level. Or Keenan Allen being a Pro Bowler, you know, 3 years in a row. Or, you know, Keenan just signing, you know, an $80 million extension. $80 million, and he calls me up.
Those
you know, I'm in Arkansas. Yeah, those are some big rocks. Calls me up, you know, I'm in Fayetteville, you know, with Felipe, and he goes, hey, Steve, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm about to go work out Felipe. He goes, oh, I'm driving to go sign my new extension. I'm like, dude, congratulations. He's like, man, thank you for all your help over the last 10 years, man. I'm like, what are you signing for? He's like, 80 million. I'm like, okay. I said, man, can you loan me $5 now? He's like, but I will loan you $10 now. So just those things, you know, those kids call in and say, you know, Jordan Love, being with Jordan at his house when he got the phone call from the Packers. Right. You know, and Coach LaFleur gets on the phone, hey, Jordan, man, are you ready to be a Packer? And, you know, after all that, he gets drafted and he's like, Steve, thank you, man, through all the last 8 years that you helped me continue to develop my skill. Like, that's the gratification for that is unbelievable. So gratifying. Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Those are the moments.
That's awesome. Yeah. All right, dude, last question, because I could probably talk your ear off for another hour or two. One thing that I'm interested in is, like, obviously you're an expert with quarterbacking. Mm-hmm. But I feel like even just talking today, like a lot of the guys that you're talking about that you work with, wide receivers, tight ends, like how has that kind of part of your practice evolved? And like, how are you working with those guys? Yeah.
Okay. So after I was working with Coach DeFries, so my trajectory was, okay, I want to be an NFL coach. Okay. So I'm going to coach high school football, and I'm going to coach college football, and I'm going to go. So that was my plan. So after I coached with Coach DeFries, my very first year in 2004, okay, the next year I'm like, all right, Coach, man, I want to go explore my options. So I got in touch with junior college coach at Golden West College. And he goes, hey, you know, we have a quarterback position open. I'm like, great, I'll take it. So I went down there, interview, hey, you're hired. Okay. And then he calls me back the next day. He goes, hey, the quarterback coach that was here last year, you know, whatever he was about to do, it didn't work out. He wants to come back. But we do have a receiver position open. Are you interested? I'm like, yeah, I can coach receivers, you know, because I mean, I've been throwing the receivers my whole life. So I know where I want them to be, and I just didn't know how to explain to get in and out of the breaks and focus on the details. So I started watching film. Just started watching film and just started going, okay, man, I saw a receiver run a route and he didn't do something. So I said, man, that would be a great drill for my guys at Golden West College to do.
Yeah.
And so that's how it started to develop. Okay. So people said, man, you're a quarterback coach, but how do you coach receivers? How do you have, I have 20 NFL receivers and tight ends in the NFL, and they're like, but you're a quarterback, for a quarterback coach.
Right.
And so I just kept same way I watch quarterbacks. I'll watch a game, see him struggle with something. I'm like, dude, that would be a great drill to add to my Armed and Dangerous football program. Same thing with receivers. And then you start to work with guys and you see them doing something wrong, and you just start to think outside the box on how can they do that better and be more efficient with that movement. And that's how this developed. So it's funny how, I talked to people who wanted to market me, and they're like, dude, you got to stop coaching receivers. Man, we want to market you as this top quarterback guru guy, but you coach receivers. And I was like, well, why can't you just market me as a coach?
Right.
You happen to coach quarterbacks and receivers.
Yeah.
And they were like, no, there's a certain market, because there's a lot of guys who have been now on ESPN, like George Whitfield. He was like on College Game Day.
Oh yeah, I saw that, and I was actually angry. Let me just tell you. And actually, I don't know George. He might be fantastic. I'm sure, what. But I was like, they got the wrong guy.
Right. So, having, my agent or my marketing team try to pitch me to ESPN for that position. They're like, it's hard to try to pitch you because you're known for receivers too. Like, I can talk both. And so that's kind of been my struggle, of how you market Steve Calhoun.
Yeah.
And so it is
that's
what it
interesting.
is. Yeah.
Because it should be additive. I don't know. Well, I want to tell you something. I wonder if you think about it in these terms, but I've been really fortunate over the course of this podcast to talk to some really awesome people in really different walks of life. Actually, I think it's a guy I just spoke to this week. Actually, he's a high school track coach who has kind of developed into this international sprint expert.
Wow.
And I'd be happy to introduce you if there was any reason that it made sense to, but actually it might. We should talk about that after the show. But the same way that he approaches sprinting and working with his track guys is same thing I'm hearing from you. It's constant innovation. It's not looking at what do people traditionally do. It's what are the demands of the sport? It's constantly learning, watching film, building something around that. That just seems to be a consistent trait among people who are doing really innovative things that are pushing whatever their specialty is forward. Are you kind of consciously aware of that, or is that just the way that your mind operates with all the things that you do?
I am aware of that, and it's a gift. But I have to give a shout out to the Manning family. Like I mentioned earlier in the show, to be able to go be around the Mannings for 4.5 days. Peyton, Archie, Eli, Cooper, and they have Mike McCarthy come in because Mike McCarthy's son is at the camp, and Coach Peyton from the Saints, because it's right there because we're in Thibodaux, Louisiana. So, and they never get tired of talking ball. No one there gets tired of talking football. So the amount of knowledge that I can get from Peyton and Eli and from Archie, and I'm able to get that information and formulate it in the way I want to deliver it to my quarterbacks and just pass that, because quarterbacking is quarterbacking. There's nothing new. The wheel's been around since 1908 or whatever it's been, 1901. Right. The wheel's been around. You can't reinvent it, okay? But you can figure out a better way to deliver the information to the quarterback of that same wheel. Yeah, it's round like this. But man, okay, let's look at it from the inside of the spokes and not on the outside. Let's look at it from, in front of the wheel. and it's just all about taking that information and being able, like we talked about earlier, just communicate it. So I love being able to be invited back to the Manning Passing Academy every year. It's a who's who, and it takes a lot to be invited to coach there, because
I feel like even people who aren't diehard football fans know about like the Manning Academy.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's featured all the time. It's a really important thing for like top prospects to be at.
Correct.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, that's awesome. I didn't realize you were doing that. It's so cool.
Yeah. So that's an unbelievable thing to have access to, and if when you get invited, they're like, okay, we want you here every year. You're basically a Manning now because you're an extension of our family, and they really treat it as a family. And I can call up Peyton and Eli and Mr. Manning right now if I have any questions about quarterbacking or football. They allow us to have that type of access to them. So I'm always growing as a quarterback coach, a football junkie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the same way I can coach receivers, Peyton and Eli can coach receivers because they know exactly where they want them to be and how they want them to get in and out of their break and stuff like that. So I'm always constantly learning. I'm never going to stop, and I'm just going to continue to grow, Armed and Dangerous football.
I love it, man. All right. I've got one question for you, and we'll wrap it up on this.
Okay.
Are great quarterbacks born or are they made?
They're made.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. So if you have a really good athlete who has like some natural potential, we can get them polished up into a stud.
Absolutely.
Okay. I love it.
No doubt about it. And
awesome.
I'm just the man to do it.
Yes. Nicely done. Took that one home perfectly. Steve, man, dude, this has been such a blast. It was awesome to reconnect. And man, I just feel like your story is so incredible, and I'm so excited to see where it goes from here. So I really appreciate you taking the time to do the show. No,
I appreciate you having me on, and I'm definitely going to take you up on coming out.
Yes.
Dude, I'm not trying to work out with you when I come and visit. Okay? I saw your whole family's working out. I'm like, oh my God, I just want to come and just take a little vacation, man. Have me doing pull-ups with 100-pound plate. Like, no, Kenny, I just want to relax.
All right. We'll do that on a deload week.
Okay.
We'll have you out. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome, man. You got to take me up on that.
Yeah. Hey, continued success on your podcast, man. You're doing an unbelievable job, man. Thank you for having me on. And
actually, really quickly, and I want to make sure I don't miss this. For people who do want to follow what you're doing, I know there's a couple places. Where should I point them?
Yeah. I have a website, armedanddangerousfootball.com. They can reach me there. Instagram, it's Armed Dangerous. Yeah. And then on Twitter, it's Armed QBS. Yeah. Armed QBS at Twitter or whatever it is.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So I'll link to all that.
Mm-hmm.
Steve, man, this has been a blast.
Man, appreciate you. Let me know how old I am, dude, because you were 17. You were 16 when I met you. Now you're 33. What?
And now I've got kids running drills in the backyard.
There you go. Absolutely.
Awesome, man.